Okay, I suppose we may as well start from the very beginning.
Hey, good folks. My name's Ben Eddings, and you're watching Cast the Bones. Cast the Bones is a board game show, a show about board games, role playing games, all of the tabletop experiences that I love and I know that you love too. In this very first episode of Cast the Bones, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Ben. I live in the west coast of Scotland, have done for some time now. I came here through my job. I work at Faslane Naval Base.
Okay, so that much is real.
I could tell you what I do there, but I'd have to kill you. Oh, that's a little joke. It's not as exciting as it sounds, I'm sure, despite the nuclear weapons housed under my feet. I live alone here in this big house in the country, and I play board games to keep myself sane. I have a little board game group, and every week we get together and we play all the latest hotness. We are up to date with our games, and we get through a lot of them, and we just love board games. And I just could talk about board games all day long because hashtag life needs rules, as I say on my social media accounts, hashtag life needs rules. And since my wife passed, board games have been a real godsend for me. In this first episode, I'm going to tell you about a couple of recent games that I've loved. It's not like other board game shows. I'm not going to go into a big detailed explanation of rules and stuff. The fun is finding that stuff out for yourself. But I'm going to give you just an overview of the experience, how the thing looks, shoot it beautifully, make it look nice, and we'll share the love. So let's get started as we continue to Cast the Bones. H.P. Lovecraft is a hero of mine, one of the most brilliant people who ever lived. Sure, he had certain opinions that I certainly wouldn't agree with, but the man had a wonderful mind. He was inspired by another favorite of mine, Lord Dunsany, whose visitations I dreamed about often when I was a child suffering from night terrors. I couldn't resist a board game like Cthulhu Wars. It's an incredible looking thing with Lovecraft's creatures represented on the board by giant toys that really spark the mind. The game itself is not a complicated one, but it's deep and full of color. It's a universe of imagination, setting player against player in a nightmare world where mindless evil has won out, but only one foul god can rule. The rulebook is one of the best I've ever read, and I have read many. The game allows a player control of one Lovecraftian faction, a limited amount of actions, and a huge amount of tactical decisions. Each faction has a number of spell books, special abilities, that can be activated by the player in an order of his or her choosing. And this is one of the most rich parts of the game. As much as this is a game about knowing your enemies, it's also about knowing yourself. How should Nyarlathotep wage this war? When should Cthulhu set the world dreaming? The game's direct and exciting. When you finally summon your great old one through your foul deeds, you feel such a rush of power. The game is built from simple foundations: control of a map, control of gates to summon your creatures, battles, conquest. But the friction of your faction and your powers rubbing up against the factions and powers of the other players is like nothing else you will ever play. Is it too much? Is it too expensive? Too decadent? Well, I think these toys are wonderful. These are totemic things, unlocking long nights of joy and mystery. We should be allowed to indulge occasionally, to distract ourselves. Lovecraft continues to inspire with his rich, dark fantasy, a fantasy built from the reality we all come to understand in time, that the universe is watching and cares nothing for our hopes or our dreams. Hey folks, welcome back. Wow, what an experience. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that in your life? It's just incredible. Now, as I said before, Cast the Bones is not like your other board game shows. I can't hope to compete with all those wonderful reviewers out there right now. Shout out to them all. This is very much a one-man show here. I live alone in this house. There's no one to operate my camera. Hopefully, I'm in focus right now. Please forgive me if I'm not. I measured the focal length and hope I'll get it right. Stick with me. We got a long road. But it's also different from other board game shows, and that it's a little bit more impressionistic, and I want to show you some stuff about my life. I've always been, since I was a child, I would make little home videos and make little movies, and I want to share some of that stuff with you as I show you my life here in beautiful Scotland. It's a beautiful country, and I think to understand the gamer and to understand the game, you've got to understand the gamer. So let's continue to cast the bones. Do you remember Twilight 2000? Yeah, it was a role-playing game about a post-nuclear world where war continues to rumble on despite the fact that the chain of command has completely collapsed. It was dark and terrible, lonely. It was hyper-violent too. At least it was when we kids were playing it in my mom's basement. It was war gone wrong, and a game that flagged up some stark realizations about life. And man, when I was a kid, I played this one with my best friend Petey all the time. It was the 80s, and we were all obsessed with nukes back then. It was a real good one, this. Underrated, I think, with a tricky but fascinating rule set and plenty of scope for wild stories. Man, Petey's gone now. He died in a car accident when he was only 19 years old. Drunk at the wheel. Went headfirst through the windscreen. He always survived in this game, but he's gone now. And I work with nuclear weapons. I miss him. Isn't life funny? You might have noticed that I appear in this show in black and white, while the games are in color. That's deliberate. When I play a game, I feel like Dorothy arriving in Oz. The world explodes into life. Gaming is a key element of my existence. I see games everywhere. I see meaning in everything. Nothing means nothing. A spider in her web working, trapping is part of some grand strategy. A locked door on an old building hides a secret, and that secret can be learned. You just have to know how. You just have to know how to get in. Leaves, they fall from the trees, and that's an action that has to occur before the next action can take place. It's simple process. Nature follows strict rules, and I take my time in life to try to learn them. I'm sure you do this too. I'm sure you see the order in everything, the reasoning behind every placement of every object and every roll of every die. You know, I think we're flung into life without a rule book. We arrive in the world roughshod like an untested prototype, and we're doomed to hurtle towards complete collapse unless we find the rules. We have to learn them. Life needs rules so that we can process the actions that the universe has selected for us. You've lost someone that you love. But what does it mean? Nothing means nothing. I want to tell you about Clank. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. It's a game about going into a dungeon, grabbing treasure, and getting out again. The dungeon is full of dangers, and the best treasure is deep, deep down below. It's a deck builder, which means you have cards that you can play, and you spend the game buying better ones to make your choices more interesting and your play more effective. It means that every single turn will find you making a decision that will affect the rest of your game. Every card matters. Cards give you movement, attack powers, special abilities, and these cards help you run around searching for cool stuff in the dungeon's many rooms. But some cards also cause clank, which is noise, represented by you flinging little cubes of your color into a bag, and then when the dragon attacks, you pull cubes to see if yours comes back out, causing you to get hit. It's so exciting, it makes me so damn happy. And there's an app that lets you play the game solo too, if you're on your own and you have to play solitaire more often than you'd like. You got to get this one, guys. It is real, real peachy. Isn't it beautiful how technology can interact with tabletop stuff like that? It's so exciting. And it's a wonderful game. I really recommend you try that out, with your family too. If you have kids, if you're lucky enough to have some children, I imagine that would be a wonderful experience to share that with some kids. So give that one a try. I want to thank you all for watching Cast the Bones now. There's one last thing I want to say. If I know a lot of reviewers out there, they're so busy and so established that they won't take a look at prototypes or ideas. Or if you have any kind of prototype out there or something you want me to take a look at, please do send it. Send me your comments and send me your prototypes. Let me try out your stuff. As crazy as it might be, I got all the time in the world, and I'd love to take a look at whatever you've got. If there's something you have that you feel is important for me to see, now's the time to send it. I'm telling you, now's the time. I do understand. I understand now. So now is the time to send it. So with that said, let's continue. And I'll see you next time where we continue to cast the bones.
Now, how many of these are there?
I didn't want you thinking this episode was a little bit downbeat. I'm apologies if it did. I wanted to show you this. I saw a deer outside my bedroom window. I thought you might like to see this baby deer. Nothing means nothing.